We will lift the local delay in the Indianapolis market so those folks here in Indianapolis can watch the Indianapolis 500 live.
Some pretty monumental news from IMS and IndyCar President Doug Boles. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway selling out the grandstands. So that means the 109th running of the Indy 500 will air live in the Indianapolis market next Sunday. It's sure to be a big day for the 109th running of the race as you look there at Gate 1 at IMS on this qualification weekend. Meantime, sources are confirming that President Trump will not be attending the race, despite being invited by Indiana senators and also track owner Roger Penske. Thanks for joining us this week. A lot of news out of the White House this week. There's a new trade deal with China that's helped the markets bounce back, but there are still concerns about potential price increases for consumers this summer, along with concerns about potential cuts to Medicaid. We'll hear from Indiana Senator Todd Young in just a minute. But first, Washington correspondent Vinay Simlot with the latest on the impact of the president's tariffs.
The Walmart CEO says his company imports from dozens of countries and China is critical for toys and electronics, and he says it's not easy to find an American supplier for those products. Washington is weary after Walmart executives warned you'll see higher prices on everything from avocados to coffee to roses.
They can't plan. They need certainty, and there is no certainty.
The chief financial officer says the price tag on bananas, which are imported from Costa Rica, rose from 50 cents per pound to 54 cents. He says car seats imported from China will cost $450, up from $350. The Walmart CEO blames President Donald Trump's tariffs on U.S. imports.
We're only beginning to see the ramifications of this.
Democrats and some Republicans on Capitol Hill say they're against prolonged tariffs on imports.
My hope is that is in fact what it is a short-term negotiation strategy, not a long-term economic policy.
And the chairman of the Federal Reserve says he expects more supply chain issues.
We may be entering a period of more frequent and potentially more persistent supply shocks.
This week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced the U.S. and China agreed to a deal for 90 days. U.S. taxes on Chinese goods would drop from 145% to 30%. China would drop its 125% tariff on American goods to 10%. President Trump says these tariffs are essential to bringing manufacturing back to the U.S.
It's time that we decouple from China on our supply chain.
Walmart says even with the 90-day pause, higher prices are inevitable. Executives say we started seeing higher prices at the end of April, but we'll likely see more headed into June and July, especially with back-to-school supplies. In Washington, I'm Vinay Simlot. Back to you.
Vinay, thank you. This week, our Washington bureau caught up with Indiana Senator Todd Young to ask him about the economy and about the potential for cuts to Medicaid.
What is your take on what you're hearing out of the House's proposal? There is some concern from people back home about cuts to Medicaid and SNAP.
Well, all Republicans are unified in our effort to try and advance one big, beautiful bill. There are challenges. We anticipated some challenges arising. There are principal disagreements about where cost savings can be realized for some of the largest programs of government and how we can accommodate the different needs of interests around the country as within our tax code. But we're getting closer. I think we have an opportunity to improve on what the House has done, and my hope is we'll have a completed package of this reconciliation bill as we head home back to our states for August recess.
Are there any concerns about those cuts, though, as it relates to some of these programs that many people rely on?
You know, I'm hearing from a lot of Hoosiers that we should first go after waste, fraud, and abuse and a lot of these different programs. That is where we're focused. And then secondarily, we need to be thinking about making these programs sustainable. I think few Americans could understand prior to this conversation we've been having around tax reform that the Medicaid program has been growing astronomically recently. This is a program that was originally intended to provide necessary health services to low-income, expectant mothers, to their children, not to able-bodied men who ought to be getting jobs and going out into society and realizing their full potential.
The last time we talked, you said you were going to have a conversation with the president as it relates to the CHIPS Act. I know he had some concerns there. He wanted to maybe repeal it. Have you had a chance to talk to him?
Well, I've certainly talked to members of his team, and that has yielded some great reassurance that semiconductors remain a priority for the president, that there won't be significant changes to the awarded contracts that we've already seen through the CHIPS Act, and I believe the program will remain on track. I have emphasized to the administration I see some opportunities on the margins to make improvements to the overall program, but I think everyone would agree that if you can unlock $500 billion of private capital and only spend $40 billion of taxpayer money to do so, that is an amazing bargain that helps stimulate job creation. And most importantly, that prepares us for a potential conflict in the interruption of semiconductors with China.
Todd Young there with our Washington Bureau. This week, Pete Buttigieg, meantime, was in Iowa, perhaps testing the waters for 2028, sharing some criticisms of the president and his own party. The former South Bend mayor said the Biden administration didn't get enough credit for the economy. He says while the president's approval numbers are low, Democrats aren't doing enough about it.
I take comfort in the fact that the president is unpopular. But the fact, by the way, that you might not know, not feel if you believe some of the coverage on the internet, the president's unpopular. But that doesn't mean my side wins. Democrats do not have the best brand around here and a lot of places. There's a lot of reasons for that, some fair, some unfair. I think the most important thing is that we connect everything we believe, everything we say, everything we do to everyday life. I'm convinced the only reason we have politics, the only reason politics is worth being involved in, is because of how every decision that happens in the big white building in Washington, D.C. finds its way into our everyday lives. And nobody knows that better than people who have been sent into war on the orders of people who sit those big white buildings. But we've got to show that we're about that and not about what seem like these incredibly abstract things. We've got to meet people where they are.
Pete Buttigieg there in Iowa. Meantime, at the State House this week, Indiana's Secretary of State is now facing a lawsuit over a new law that would prevent college-aged voters from using their student IDs as a form of identification at the polls. State House reporter Hannah Adamson has a closer look at that debate.
It's really unfairly targeting young people in particular.
Angela Carr-Klitsch is the CEO of Women for Change, a group who is suing Indiana Secretary of State Diego Morales over a new law they say goes against the 26th Amendment.
The reality is that this is a bill that purposely targets a youth population.
The newly enacted law prohibits Indiana college students from using their student ID to vote, something college kids had been able to do in Indiana for the past 20 years.
Over 2/3 of Bloomington college students used their college ID to vote in the most recent election.
Other voting rights groups who are not part of the lawsuit say there's no evidence of student voter fraud while the old law was in place, and that only about half of 18 and 19-year-olds nationwide have driver's licenses they can use as an alternative to vote.
No students have attempted to use their ID to vote who weren't entitled to vote in Indiana.
We can't have a democracy if we don't have all eligible voters registered.
This is very, very, very frustrating.
Marion County Clerk Kate Sweeney Bell is not part of the lawsuit, but says the new law comes as Indiana's voter turnout is the second lowest in the nation, only beating out West Virginia.
There will be, I expect, fewer voters because of this bill. It is very frustrating to me because I'm trying to fight to make sure that people understand how important their vote is.
In a statement, the lead author of the newly enacted bill says in part, quote, "The intention is not to restrict people from voting. Rather, it is to ensure only those who live in Indiana can vote in Indiana elections." A statement from the Indiana Secretary of State's office reads in part, quote, "Senate Enrolled Act 10 ensures that every ID used at the polls is secure and reinforces my promise that only eligible Hoosiers are voting in our state." Reporting from the State House, I'm Hannah Adamson.
Hannah, thanks. Meantime, Governor Braun also facing a lawsuit over that provision in the new state budget giving him full control of IU's Board of Trustees. We spoke about that last week with the House Minority Leader. Here's more of our interview now with State Rep. Phil Giaquinta.
ACLU of Indiana filed a lawsuit because of that measure. What's your reaction to that particular part of the budget bill and the controversy it's causing at IU?
Well, look, we like to talk a lot about transparency and being open, and this provision to put into the budget at the very last minute is the exact opposite of what we try to do when it comes to legislation and giving folks a chance to weigh in on these issues. So it didn't go through any type of committee hearing, nothing like that, because we would love to ask some questions as to why are we changing something that's been around, I think, since the 1800s. I saw, the governor has 5 appointments. These 3 the remaining appointments are elected by the IU alumni. There was certainly, I've never heard a complaint about it. It was certainly working fine, but we're not really sure exactly what the reasoning for this is. Particularly, my one concern right off the bat is why just IU? What about Purdue, Ball State, and the others that have these type of whether it's an election or appointments of alums to the board? It really doesn't make any sense, and we really can't get any answers as to why this is happening, other than just, frankly, a blatant political grab by the governor. And I think it's just a wrong way to go. What we sure would love some answers in the name of at least transparency. I think it's the citizens of the state, and particularly IU alums that want to participate in these elections, they deserve an answer.
What's your overall assessment of the Braun Beckwith administration's first legislative session? Obviously, the lieutenant governor has faced a lot of controversy for some of his recent remarks about the 3/5 compromise. There have been other controversial comments throughout the session as well. What's your overall view of the governor and lieutenant governor's first session at the State House this year, their first 100 days?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to the lieutenant governor, it just looks like he's trying to make the news and be in the spotlight instead of focusing on his duties and job as a lieutenant governor. And, talking about the 3/5 compromise, the way he did is just, first of all, it's blatantly false, his commentary on that, and it's hurtful, and it just wasn't necessary. And that is really, it's a distraction from the job that he has to be doing, from what the governor has to be doing. Unfortunately for Governor Braun, I think he came in thinking they had to be, I guess, more like the federal government and what President Trump is doing with his executive orders and things like that. I hope that he gives in the future more careful consideration to things that he's doing.
All right, coming up, President Trump in the Middle East this week, facing questions about this gift of an airplane to replace Air Force One. We'll talk about it with our panel, and we'll discuss the Indiana congressman facing scrutiny for his investments on the stock market when we come back.